The battlefield was silent. Only broken metal, floating debris, and drifting smoke remained where the stars once shined. A giant alien ship hovered above the ruins, its dark surface glowing with red lights. The commanders of the Graxian Empire stood proudly on their bridge, watching the wreckage of what used to be an Earth ship. To them, the fight was over. They believed they had crushed the only threat in the sector. The Graxians had never faced humans before, but their scans had shown just one small human ship, lightly armed and easily destroyed. They had attacked it without warning and didn't expect any resistance. The battle lasted less than 7 minutes. Now, they were ready to move on. Commander Varnex, leader of the Graxian strike fleet, turned to his officers with a cruel smile. "That was it. That's the power of Earth," he laughed. Others joined him, confident and careless. "If that's their defense, we have nothing to fear," said another officer. None of them noticed a faint signal blinking within the debris. Deep inside the wreckage, behind shattered panels and torn wires, a small device powered up. It sent a message in a burst of tight beam data, so fast and silent that no alien sensor caught it. It was not a distress call. It was a trigger. Far away, hidden in the outer rim of the solar system, a human satellite picked up the signal. Inside the satellite, old systems came to life. Red lights blinked, and coded messages traveled through secure channels. Underground command centers across Earth lit up with alerts. Generals, scientists, and special command teams began to gather. One sentence repeated on every screen: "Recon unit down. Phase 2 initiate." The room fell silent. Everyone knew what it meant. Earth had not sent a warship. They had sent a scout, a recon unit with only basic weapons, designed to observe and study the Graxians. The mission was peaceful, but also a test. Now the test was over. The Graxians had failed. They attacked first. They destroyed the recon unit without cause. And now, Earth would respond. Back near the battlefield, the Graxian ships started collecting data. Drones moved through the floating debris, picking up samples. "Strange," one technician said. "This ship was not heavily armed. Very light armor. No real threat." Commander Varnex shrugged. "Then Earth is weak. They fear us already." But deep down, something felt wrong. Why would a species send such a weak ship alone into enemy space? Was it a mistake? Or was it something else? One of the drones returned with a damaged human data core. The technicians tried to open it, but the system was locked with heavy encryption. After some time, they'd managed to open a few files. Pictures, star maps, strange words written in English. One file was titled, "Observation Log. Enemy Behavior." Another file said, "Do not engage." The officers looked at each other. Confusion spread among them. The ship wasn't here to fight. It was watching them. Panic started to build slowly. Meanwhile, on Earth, massive warships began to rise from underground hangars. Engines roared to life, and weapons charged with blue energy. Pilots ran to their stations, and commanders prepared for war. This was not a reaction of anger. It was cold, calculated, and quiet. Earth did not shout. Earth did not threaten. Earth simply prepared. Humanity had seen this before. Long ago, on their own planet, they had learned the cost of trusting too easily. Now in space, they used the same lessons. Send the scout. Watch who fires first. And then respond. The Graxian fleet still floated near the ruined ship, thinking they had won. They celebrated, laughed, and sent messages of victory back to their empire. But far behind them, in the darkness of space, multiple human ships were already moving. They were silent. No signals, no warnings. Their black hulls absorbed light, making them nearly invisible. They were faster, smarter, deadlier. The recon unit had done its job. It had died to reveal the enemy's true face, and now humanity knew everything it needed. But the Graxians didn't know that yet. They still believed the battle was over. They still believed they were safe. And that was their biggest mistake. The command center deep under Earth's surface was quiet, but the tension in the air was heavy. Red lights blinked across screens, and a sharp repeating alarm echoed through the halls. The signal had arrived. The Recon unit, codenamed Scout 9, had been destroyed. But more importantly, it had completed its mission before going silent. The humans did not panic. There was no loud reaction. Instead, every person moved quickly and calmly. They had trained for this moment. Now it was time to act. General Rhodes, the commander of Earth's Space Defense Network, stood in front of the main screen. His face was hard, his eyes sharp. He turned to his officers and said in a quiet voice, "They fired first. And now, they'll learn who we are." Across the room, an officer activated the Defense Phase 2 protocol. Massive underground doors slowly opened in different parts of the world. Hidden bases, built in the shadows for decades, came alive. Dozens of black and silver ships lifted into the sky, each one designed for speed, strength, and surprise. These were not scouting vessels. These were warships, silent, deadly, and equipped with advanced stealth systems. In orbit above Earth, the human defense fleet started to form. Some of these ships had never been seen by the public. They were kept secret, not because Earth was weak, but because Earth was smart. They had waited, watched, measured every move of the Graxians for months. The Recon unit had gathered key data about Graxian weapons, shields, patterns, and communication. Now, all that data would be used against them. Back in the Graxian fleet, the mood had changed slightly. Commander Varnex was no longer laughing. He stared at the images recovered from the Recon ship. His officers brought him translated reports. The ship had no real offensive systems. The files were full of observation logs and strategic analysis, not attack plans. One entry stood out. It read, "If they fire first, Earth responds. Prepare accordingly." "Sir," said a Graxian officer nervously, "this was never a warship. It was a test." Varnex growled. "A test? They let us destroy it, on purpose." His voice was full of doubt now. His confidence was breaking. No species is that reckless. But he was wrong. Humans were not reckless. They were strategic. He didn't know that the Recon unit was unmanned. An eye-controlled drone. There had been no lives on board. It was a sacrifice designed to expose the true nature of the Graxian fleet. And it worked perfectly. Earth had everything it needed. Far away, the first human response fleet left Earth orbit. The ships were fast and moved in total silence, leaving no signal behind. They followed a carefully mapped route, hidden from Graxian sensors. On board, soldiers prepared themselves. They wore advanced suits, each one connected to the ship's eye. Their faces showed no fear. They had trained for this moment all their lives. General Rhodes watched their progress from the Earth Command Center. "Time to show them," he said quietly. Back with the Graxians, strange signals began to appear on their radar. Faint, almost invisible, but enough to trigger alarms. "Unknown contacts," said the sensor technician. "Multiple sources, moving fast, very fast." "How many?" Varnex asked sharply. "At least 20. No, wait. 30. Sir, they're surrounding us." The bridge fell silent. Panic started to rise. Varnex turned to his communication officer. "Send a message to the Empire. Now." The officer hesitated. "Sir, we're being jammed." Now they understood. The humans hadn't come for a conversation. They hadn't sent warnings. They had come for justice, and they had come prepared. The human ships closed in like shadows. No lights, no sound, just pure silence and death. The Graxians scrambled to activate shields, but their systems were already being hacked. The data from the Recon ship had included weaknesses, small gaps in the Graxian technology that Earth's engineers had studied carefully. In just minutes, their entire communication system was breaking down. On one of the human ships, a captain gave the order. Target engines first. Disable, don't destroy. Let them feel the fear. Lasers sliced through the dark. Silent explosions rocked the Graxian vessels. One by one, their engines died. The massive warships floated helplessly in space, unable to move, unable to call for help. The crew inside screamed, confused and afraid. The battle they thought was over had just begun. And this time, they were not the hunters. They were the hunted. And Earth hadn't even sent its full fleet yet. This was only the beginning. The awakening had started. And the galaxy would never be the same again. You said, 3. The stars were quiet again, but not in peace. It was the silence before the storm. Around the broken Graxian fleet, shadows moved without sound. Human ships, black as night and built for stealth, surrounded the enemy from all sides. The Graxians could not see them clearly, could not lock on their targets. Their sensors were confused. Their systems kept showing ghost signals in every direction. Fear slowly crept into every corner of their ships. Commander Varnex stood in the center of his flagship, trying to keep calm. "Where are they?" he shouted. His officers were sweating, tapping on screens that no longer responded properly. "We're blind, sir. They're jamming us. And they're everywhere." The voice of the officer cracked mid-sentence. It was no longer just confusion. It was fear. The humans had not fired again after the first disabling shots. No ships were destroyed. No lives were taken. That made it worse. It was like the humans were watching, waiting. The silence felt like a hand on the throat, slowly tightening. One Graxian officer whispered, "They could finish us." "Why don't they?" Another answered, "Because they want us to be afraid." They were right. On the human side, the command ships maintained strict radio silence. Inside, soldiers monitored every Graxian move. Earth's tactical AI suggested strategies, weak points, and vulnerabilities. Commander Jules, leader of the response fleet, watched the Graxians float in confusion. "Let them feel it," she said coldly. "Let them remember what it means to play with fire." The Graxians had underestimated humanity. They thought Earth was primitive. They had no idea that humans had been preparing for deep space war for decades. Quietly, patiently, they had studied other species, built silent weapons, developed invisible ships, and trained soldiers to operate in total silence and complete darkness. What the Graxians had seen so far was just one layer. The Recon unit they destroyed was only the beginning. Suddenly, inside one of the Graxian ships, a loud beep echoed from a terminal. An unknown file had appeared on their main screen. No one had opened it. It was simply there. The Graxian technicians stared at it. The file name was, "You're Not Ready." Commander Varnex's hand shook as he gave the order to open it. The screen went black, and then a human face appeared. A calm, older man in uniform. "This was not an attack," the man said. "You destroyed a scout. That was your choice. You made your intentions clear. Now we respond, not with destruction, but with knowledge. Know this. What surrounds you is only Earth's Recon response fleet, not even our first line of defense. If we wanted you gone, you would be." The video ended. Nothing more. Silence returned. The Graxians realized something terrifying. These were not Earth's main forces. These were the scouts who watched the scouts. And still, they were untouchable. If this was just the Recon response, then what would the full force of humanity look like? In the Earth fleet, Commander Jules gave the next order. "Send the second phase." Within seconds, drones were released, small, silent machines designed for psychological operations. They carried messages, holograms, and data files meant to confuse, terrify, and inform. The drones entered the Graxian ships without being stopped. They moved through air vents, maintenance shafts, and docking ports. Inside the Graxian ships, panic exploded. Lights flickered. Alarms rang for no reason. Screens showed human cities, human weapons, and Earth's history of wars and victories. Even ancient Earth battles from centuries ago were displayed, showing how humanity had always fought harder when pushed. Graxian soldiers ran through the halls, trying to shut down the systems, but the damage was done. The fear had settled deep into their bones. And still, the human ships did not fire. Commander Varnex, now pale and speechless, called for an emergency retreat. "Get us out of here," he ordered. But it was too late. Their engines were offline. Their communications were blocked. They couldn't move. Earth wasn't destroying them. Earth was disabling them, humiliating them, showing them that mercy wasn't weakness, it was a warning. The final message from the human fleet arrived without sound. Just a glowing message on every Graxian screen, translated perfectly in their language. "You attacked our scout. You are now known. You will not be trusted. The next move is yours. Choose wisely." And then, just like that, the human fleet disappeared. The ships melted into the stars, leaving no trace behind. One by one, the radar signals vanished. The Graxian fleet, once proud and confident, now floated helplessly in space, broken and afraid. Back on Earth, General Rhodes smiled slightly. "Let them think about it," he said. "Let them fear the silence." And across the galaxy, every species who received fragments of the incident began to whisper one name in fear: humanity. On the distant planet of Trevorus, the grand halls of the Galactic Council buzzed with nervous voices. The council chamber, normally calm and full of pride, now echoed with whispers of fear. News had reached them: fragmented reports, strange sensor logs, and broken messages from the Graxian fleet. Something had happened near the outer rim. Something that didn't match any known battle pattern. The Graxians had gone silent, and the last transmission had only one strange phrase: Recon unit. Human. It was just Recon. Ambassadors from multiple alien species gathered, their faces showing concern. The Graxians had claimed victory 2 days ago. They had said they destroyed the only human ship in the region. But now, they weren't responding at all. Not to calls. Not to direct pings. Even their emergency beacons were silent. The sudden silence spoke louder than any message. A tall, blue-skinned alien named Cora, representative of the Vexari Empire, stood up. "I warned you all," she said. "You allowed humans into our space, hoping they would act soft. But now look, one Recon unit was destroyed." And the Graxians vanished. Another ambassador, a slow-moving reptilian named Sarl, hissed in agreement. "We thought Earth was still developing. We thought they were peaceful. But maybe we were wrong." The High Speaker of the Council, a robotic being named Ulrex 5, raised his hand. "We must not jump to fear. Perhaps it was a technical issue. Maybe the Graxians are recovering from a natural problem." But no one believed that. The room was filled with fear because the truth was starting to settle in. Earth had responded, and they had done it without making a sound. No war declaration, no open attack, just silence, followed by fear and confusion. Then came the signal. It arrived in the Council's private communication channel, not through the standard galactic network, but through an ancient diplomatic line that only a few knew existed. The message was simple. A plain human voice spoke. "This is Earth. You failed to control the Graxians. We have handled it. No need for war, unless more foolish steps are taken. This time, we were kind. Next time, we won't send Recon." And that was it. No threats, no names, no locations, just calm words filled with quiet power. The chamber fell into silence. Even the bravest speakers had nothing to say. Because if this was Earth being kind, then no one wanted to see what Earth would do in anger. Back at the edge of the galaxy, what remained of the Graxian fleet limped through space. Some ships had regained partial power. Others had to be towed. Their crew members were in shock, not because they had lost, but because they had never even fought. The humans had not needed to fire real weapons. They had simply shut everything down, surrounded them, and vanished. Commander Varnex had been removed from command. He now sat in a dark chamber aboard a damaged Graxian ship, whispering to himself. Over and over, he repeated, it was just Recon, just Recon. On Earth, the news never reached the public. Everything was kept secret. Earth's leaders didn't want to create fear or pride. They wanted peace, but they also wanted to make sure no one tried something like this again. The lesson had been given, not with destruction, but with precision. The galaxy had seen the shadows of human strength. That was enough. For now. In the council chamber, debates started again. Some called for better peace treaties with Earth. Others wanted to ban human ships from council space. But deep down, most species knew the truth. They could not control Earth. Not anymore. Maybe never again. Cora leaned toward Sarl and whispered, "Do you understand now? The humans are not just another species. They're something different. They let us see their scout, and we thought it was the army." Sarl nodded slowly. "If that was only Recon, then I fear we have made a terrible mistake." Somewhere beyond the Council's eyes, Earth's true fleets continued to move in silence. Not to attack, but to watch, to study, to be ready. Because humans didn't start this battle, but they had finished it, and the galaxy was finally beginning to understand. Never mistake Earth's quiet for weakness. Sometimes silence is the loudest warning. The Graxian Empire was once proud, loud, aggressive, and feared across many sectors of the galaxy. But ever since the silent human response, everything inside the Empire began to fall apart. The defeat wasn't official, no war had been declared, and no cities had been destroyed. Yet, everyone knew what had happened. The Recon unit they destroyed had not been Earth's main weapon. It was a test, and the humans had passed their own test with terrifying precision. On the homeworld of the Graxians, High Command tried to cover the truth. They told the people that the mission had succeeded, that the human ship was destroyed without loss. But the officers and soldiers who returned told a different story, one full of confusion, fear, and shame. Many of them were still silent, unable to explain what they had seen. Others spoke in broken voices, repeating the same thing again and again. It wasn't even a real attack. They just shut us down. In the capital chambers of Graxia Prime, the High Council gathered. Supreme Leader Nurok slammed his clawed hand on the table. Why didn't we detect them? Why couldn't we stop them? We are the strongest fleet in 3 sectors, but none of his generals could answer. The more they studied the event, the more it made no sense by traditional rules of war. The humans hadn't overpowered them with brute force. They had used stealth, data, and deep strategy. They had studied Graxian systems in silence, found every weakness, and used them all at once. One general finally spoke. "Sir, I believe the Recon unit wasn't just gathering navigation data. It was analyzing us. Everything. Our shield timing, our engine cycles, our reaction speeds. It sent it all back to Earth before we destroyed it. The humans, they let us fire first." Supreme Leader Nurok's eyes widened. "You mean they wanted us to attack?" "Yes," the general replied. "They baited us, and we took it." News of the encounter began leaking to neighboring empires. Small border planets began questioning their alliances with the Graxians. Trade routes were suddenly blocked. Other species started pulling back their diplomats. In less than a week, the Graxian Empire's power began to collapse, not because of bombs, but because of fear. No one wanted to be near the species that had provoked Earth. Meanwhile, Earth remained silent. They didn't send messages to the Council. They didn't threaten retaliation. They simply stopped responding. That silence spoke louder than any weapon. In a hidden room on Graxia Prime, a young officer named Velen studied the human message again and again. You attacked our scout. You are now known. You will not be trusted. The next move is yours." These words had haunted him since the day he heard them. They were not emotional, not angry, just calm, like a judge delivering a final warning. Velen looked around at his fellow officers, some angry, some terrified, and some in complete denial. "We didn't lose a battle," he whispered. "We lost our image. We looked strong, but they showed the galaxy we were blind." Some tried to argue, "But we destroyed their ship." Velen shook his head. "No, we destroyed a message. That ship was not a threat. It was a question. And our answer was violence. At Earth's hidden outposts, things remained quiet. Ships returned to base. Soldiers were debriefed. New data was added to the defense archives. No public celebrations. No press releases. That was not Earth's way. Commander Jules reviewed the final reports and gave a simple command: stand down. Keep watch. Back in the Graxian system, panic began spreading. Minor planets began requesting independence. Military officers refused deployment orders. Some fleets even refused to leave port, fearing human retaliation. The people no longer believed in Graxian power. They had seen the truth. One human scout had brought the entire empire to its knees. Supreme Leader Nuruk ordered a new strike group to be built, to show strength again. But no one volunteered. His voice, once full of fire, now echoed in empty halls. Fear had broken the empire more deeply than any weapon could. In the shadows of space, far beyond where sensors could reach, another human ship observed quietly. A single line was typed into its mission log. Objective complete. Threat now neutralized through exposure. No further action required. And with that, it turned back toward Earth. The humans had not wanted war, but they had been ready. And now, so was the galaxy, ready to remember the day the Graxian Empire collapsed. Not through bombs, not through invasion, but through the silent warning of a single human recon unit. The story of the Graxian defeat did not stay hidden for long. In every corner of the galaxy, people whispered about the event. What had started as a simple military mission, one Graxian fleet attacking a lone human ship, had now become a legend. Even without official reports, the tale spread like fire. The humans had sent only a recon unit, and when it was destroyed, Earth had answered, quietly, perfectly, and without mercy. On distant planets, soldiers and commanders watched the data carefully. Though most of it was blocked or scrambled, enough remained to send chills down their spines. Radar logs showed unknown ships that appeared and vanished like ghosts. Communication records from the Graxian ships ended mid-sentence. One commander's voice, shaky and confused, was heard whispering, "They're not fighting us. They're teaching us something." The Galactic Council, still shaken from Earth's short and calm message, was now under pressure. Member races demanded answers. Some wanted peace talks. Others wanted distance from Earth. And a few, the more foolish ones, considered preparing for conflict, thinking perhaps the humans could still be contained. But the smarter leaders said nothing. They had seen enough. On a mining colony near the rim, a group of mercenaries sat in silence inside a metal hall. The group leader, an old fighter named Drask, had faced dozens of species in battle. He slowly sipped his drink and looked at his crew. "I told you," he said, "never poke the silent one in the room." Humans didn't speak because they were listening. And now they've spoken once, and that was enough. Some nodded. Others looked away, pretending to be busy. The fear was real. Even the toughest warriors understood something had changed. The balance of power in the galaxy had shifted, but not through a war. It had shifted through knowledge, fear, and perfect timing. Back on Earth, things remained quiet. The general public never knew the details. News feeds only mentioned a military misunderstanding. But in the underground bases, the High Command reviewed every report carefully. The mission was declared a success. Earth's Defense Council agreed on one thing. The response had worked better than expected. General Rhodes sat with Commander Jules in the strategy chamber. "Did we do too much?" he asked. Jules shook her head. "No, we did just enough. Now they know what happens if someone tries." "They think that was our real force," Rhodes said with a tired smile. "That's the point," Jules replied. "Let them believe it." In the void of space, hidden satellites recorded movement. Other species had started testing new ships, upgrading fleets, and changing trade routes to avoid Earth's influence. No one dared send ships close to human space anymore. Patrol routes near the Sol system were empty. Even the most curious explorers now turned away. It was no longer just about avoiding war. It was about respect, or maybe fear. Inside the Galactic Council, a private meeting was held. Only the most powerful races were present. The goal was simple. What should be done about Earth? One ambassador suggested opening a neutral dialogue. Another wanted a complete ban on human travel. But then an elder being, thousands of years old, slowly stood. He had seen empires rise and fall. His voice was low and calm. "Let them be," he said. "You have seen what they are capable of." And that was not even their full strength. They gave us a warning. I suggest we listen. No one argued. Back in the ruins of the Graxian fleet, rescue teams searched for answers. Most systems were still down. Some ships had power but no control. The human attack had left no bodies, no fire, just silence. The kind that stays in your mind. Graxian engineers looked at their tech and realized how weak it had truly been. Not weak in size or power, but weak in design, planning, and pride. Many of them began asking hard questions. Why did they attack so quickly? Why didn't they study first, like the humans did? And most of all, how could they ever recover their reputation? The answer was simple. They couldn't. The Graxians had become the example. They were no longer the hunters of the galaxy. They were the warning. Other species now used the phrase, "Don't end up like the Graxians," whenever someone suggested rushing into war. In one hidden council archive, an unknown writer updated the threat level records. Under the file marked Humanity, the description was changed. Previous status, neutral and observational. New status, strategic superforce. Minimal use of power, maximum effect. A final line was added to the file. They don't shout. They don't show. They just watch, and if they move, it's already too late. Across the stars, the echoes of Earth's message continued to travel. Not through war, but through silence. The stars were calm again, but the galaxy was not. Every race, every leader, and every soldier now understood something they had missed before. Earth was not weak. They had never been. They were just quiet, watchful, waiting. And when pushed, they didn't roar. They responded with precision and silence. The Graxian Empire, once known for its power and fear tactics, now sat in ruins, not because of warships, but because of a message. One Recon unit from Earth had triggered the collapse of an entire empire. That message still echoed across the stars. This was not an attack. You destroyed a scout. The next move is yours. It became a warning used in every corner of the galaxy. The Galactic Council, still stunned by what had happened, quietly changed its policies. Any action against Earth now required full approval from all members, unanimous agreement. But no one voted for it. Not anymore. Too many species had seen what humans could do without firing a single warhead. Too many understood that provoking Earth would not lead to a fight. It would lead to a lesson. In a dark chamber on a research moon, a group of alien scientists studied the Graxian wreckage. They found no signs of physical destruction, no burn marks, no signs of explosives. The systems had simply shut down, as if someone had reached into the ships and flipped the power switch off. "What kind of weapon does that?" one of them whispered. Another replied, "Not a weapon, a message." Meanwhile, in a hidden command center deep under Earth's surface, Commander Jules reviewed the final logs. She watched the moment the Graxian flagship lost control. She watched the holograms spread panic. She read every report. Then, she locked it all under classified protection. This operation was complete. But Earth wasn't celebrating. There were no victory speeches, no public parades, just quiet rooms, long meetings, and continued training. Because Earth knew the truth, this wouldn't be the last time. One day, someone else would test them. And next time, it might not be a recon unit. On the edge of known space, a small transport vessel passed through an old debris field, what was left of the Graxian fleet. The pilot looked at the broken ships floating silently, untouched by fire. He said nothing, but his co-pilot spoke quietly. They say this all happened because of one human recon ship. Do you believe it? The pilot didn't answer. He just stared out the window, then finally said, "If it was only a recon ship, then we've all been fools." Back on the Graxian homeworld, rebellion had begun. Many citizens no longer trusted their leaders. The empire was falling apart from within. Generals were removed. Propaganda was ignored, and underground movements began to rise, ones that wanted peace, diplomacy, and humility. The fall of the fleet had broken the fear that kept the people silent. The lesson from Earth had planted a seed. Strength is not noise. Real strength is knowing when to act, and when not to. In one underground shelter, a young Graxian boy asked his father, "Are the humans coming back?" The father looked down and replied, "They never left. They're just watching." That single line became part of a story that would pass from one generation to the next. In the years that followed, Earth remained quiet. They continued to advance, explore, and prepare. Not for revenge, not for war, but to make sure they would never be caught off guard again. The Recon fleet was expanded. New systems were tested. Diplomats were trained to handle fear with calm words, and military commanders were told one thing above all: use your strength only when there is no other way. The galaxy, once unsure of humanity's place, now respected them, or feared them, or both. Some called them ghosts,